Life is what happens while we are making other plans. John Lennon of the Beatles made that little piece of wisdom famous in 1980 with a song to his son called Beautiful Boy. That line in that song has been with me ever since. By 1980, I was already settled in Canada, a little bit to my surprise. In 1964, I had taken a 3-week holiday to New York from my home in Dublin. One thing led to another, and 57 years later, here I am still in Toronto. When the pandemic hit us in Canada mid-March 2020, I was busy with various plans, shopping and dining with friends, going to theatre, booking tickets for overseas travel, going to Mass at St. Patrick's in downtown Toronto. St. Patrick's, a Redemptorist parish, is also the home of the shrine of our Mother of Perpetual Help. Whenever I am in St. Pat's, I pay a visit to the shrine, allowing myself to be warmed by the loving gaze of our Mother of Perpetual Help. But with COVID, suddenly all plans were off. One shock after another came with pandemic restrictions, a first-hand and never-stopping lesson in how fast life can change. Until March 2020, we could not in our wildest dreams have imagined living in lockdown in this great city of Toronto. One day bustling with big city life, the next day a place of silence and little traffic. Restaurants, gyms, and churches now all closed. What to do with all this? As I always have, I turned to the ever-loving caring of God and His Mother of Perpetual Help. The great prayer to our Mother, known as the Memorare, became my daily prayer. O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. As always, I found renewed courage to face each new day. Some days were good, some not so much. As I prayed to Mary during the early COVID days, I wondered what was her life like up to that moment of saying yes to the angel Gabriel, yes to becoming the Mother of God. What were her plans before this new life began to happen? What did Mary expect when she was expecting? She started out a single mum, and Joseph came along to be her husband and guardian. With Joseph, God showed Mary that problems would be solved one after another. Later, an order from Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus meant they had to travel for census taking to Bethlehem. The only form of travel was on the back of a donkey. Have you ever been pregnant or watched someone move about in the last few months? Can you imagine riding on a donkey for the 150 kilometers distance between Nazareth and Bethlehem? Upon arrival, they could only find shelter in an animal shed where her child, the Son of God, was born and where she placed him in a manger of straw. But another donkey ride was in store, this time hundreds of kilometers. Herod, the Roman appointed king of the Jews, had heard about the birth of a new king, her son Jesus, and was killing all firstborn sons in order to eliminate the threat of a rival to his power. The Holy Family fled to Egypt, their safety assured for now by God's plans. Whenever I am perplexed by how my life is going, how my prayers are answered or seemingly not answered, I turn to the story of this little family, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. It's a story that speaks to all of us in whatever stage of life we are in. I think of parents whose child goes missing, and I think about the time the Holy Family traveled to Jerusalem by caravan to celebrate the Feast of the Passover in Jerusalem. Returning home also by caravan, they discovered that their 12-year-old son was not with them. They rushed back to Jerusalem and searched for 3 days before finding Jesus in the temple, where he was in religious discourse with Jewish scholars. The fear and worry at that time was a prelude to much worse to come, when Jesus, as an adult, the spiritual leader for many followers, was arrested and condemned to die a most horrible death. Mary was his mother to the end, and in the end, from the cross, Jesus announced to the world that his mother was also our mother for then and forever. Down through the centuries, for those of us who pray, we go first to Mary. We take our problems to her, the big ones and the small ones, and we get answers. Not always what we are expecting, not always what we were planning for. Over the years, I have learned not just to turn to Mary, but also to keep my mind open to what happens next. Next time you pray to Mary, try to do so without expectations, without making plans for Mary and God. You may have thought you wanted a certain outcome. You may have ended up with quite another. Look closely at what happened instead. Perhaps you will see overlooked beauty, overlooked treasures that have arrived with God's plan, replacing yours. Perhaps your yes to all this will be like Mary's yes, opening the door of a trust in a life unfolding when you are busy making plans.